At the turn of the century, Stockport was mourning the death of Britain's longest reigning monarch, Queen Victoria. Britain was changing, with new expectations. Emmeline Pankhurst from Manchester founded the suffragettes movement, campaigning for women's right to vote. They faced violent opposition.
About half a dozen of us were holding a meeting in Stockport when we were attacked by a gang of men. Their conduct was so terrifying that we fled to the railway station where the officials shut all the gates for our safety. Before our train left, someone handed through the railings a bouquet of red roses.
It would not be until 1928 that women were finally given equal voting rights to men. Children too had more opportunities in this new century. Education was now compulsory, and the employment of children under 10 was forbidden. Many new full-time schools were built, and the Stockport Sunday School, which once taught over 4,000 children on their one day off from grueling work in the mills, continued as a centre of education and culture for all residents. Stockport was investing in new technology for the new century.
Stockport Corporation shall lay new tracks and electrified overhead wires along key thoroughfares in the borough for the provision of electric trams to improve the public transport services throughout the region, and replace the horse-drawn vehicles which can no longer meet the increased demand and passenger numbers.
To reflect its growing status as a major provincial town, Stockport decided that it was time to build itself an official town hall. In 1904, the mayor laid the foundation stone and work began in earnest. It took almost 4 years to complete the building work, but the result was magnificent. The town hall was built of Portland stone with a grand and imposing frontage and a clock tower standing over 130 feet high. The interior was just as splendid, with an entrance hall in Italian marble, a huge ballroom, and beautiful stained glass windows depicting important events in the town's history. The Prince and Princess of Wales officially opened the town hall on the 7th of July 1908, and tens of thousands of people lined the streets to catch a glimpse of the royal couple.
We offer to your Royal Highnesses a most loyal and cordial welcome upon the opening of the first town hall possessed by this ancient borough. We trust that this building, which we now ask your Royal Highness to declare open, may facilitate the carrying on of those powers and duties of local government, constantly becoming more complex and onerous, which are so essential to the health, the comfort and the physical and intellectual well-being of the community.
With a charter dating back to 1260 AD, Stockport Market had always been famous as one of the very best in Cheshire. Every week there was a busy cattle market in Castle Yard and trader stalls offering everyday food and provisions to the local villages and the town's large millworking population. The magnificent covered market hall was built in 1861, taking its inspiration from London's Crystal Palace. To accommodate the large numbers of mill workers whose working week did not end until midday on Saturdays, market trading was allowed to continue until midnight. Stockport was growing both in size and prosperity. 6 new schools were built, and particular emphasis was placed on the health and well-being of Stockport residents and their families.
The Woodley Fresh Air Fund is a charity whose aim is to provide poor and disadvantaged children with a day in the country or a holiday in a rural retreat. The only passport to a Fresh Air Fund holiday is the need of the child. There is no barrier of sect or creed. Will you help to bring happiness into the lives of the little ones whose lives are passed in the drab portions of our great cities? 15 pence pays for a day, and £1 pays for a fortnight.
Even the supply of Stockport's water was being addressed.
The Stockport Corporation Waterworks Committee, having duly obtained the necessary parliamentary powers, hereby opens the Kinder Reservoir Works above the village of Hayfield. The abundant rainfall on the high peaks averages 45 inches each year, and this reservoir will supply between 4 to 5 million gallons of water to the residents of Stockport every day.
Stockport's first cinema, the Electric Theatre, opened in 1910, and sports clubs flourished as family leisure time became less restricted. But all this changed on the 4th of August 1914 as Britain entered the Great War. The 6th Cheshire Battalion, based in Stockport, was immediately mobilised. Recruitment posters went up around the town and rallies were held at the Armoury. By 1915, 12,000 of Stockport's men had volunteered, and work in the factories was increasingly taken over by women.
To the Mechanical Warfare Department, Whitehall. Dear Sirs, the Hazel Grove Works of Merleys, Bickerton and Day Limited is pleased to cooperate most fully with the supply of diesel engines for His Majesty's Armed Forces. This work has necessitated a large number of extra workers, who are in the main female, the Army having absorbed so many of the males. This innovation is one of great importance. We think it only right to say that the work being done by these women and girls is greatly helping the prosecution of the war. Their willingness and adaptability is very marked, whilst their uniform cheerfulness is most helpful to our productivity.
But the biggest impact of the war was on Stockport's young men, many of whom saw warfare as an adventure and a chance to see foreign lands.
I left Reddish at 7 a.m. and reported to the recruiting office in Stockport, and then travelled to the Cheshire Territorial's drill hall, where we were welcomed with open arms, as it were. We filled up another set of papers, and then some bigwig asked us what we should like to join. I think this is just a formality, as we were just sent anywhere. Next, we visit the cobbler, and this kind soldier gave us 2 pairs of boots. Oh, what a difference between these and my own. We were given 2 suits of khaki, and on each article they stamped the number 316766. It hasn't taken long to alter me from civilian to private. I wonder what's in store for us before we see home again.
Company! Fix! Bayonets! On my command! Attack!
The Advertiser, October the 16th, 1925. The Stockport War Memorial and Art Gallery was opened yesterday by His Royal Highness the Prince Henry, KG, GCVO. It is a mark of the generosity of the people of Stockport that the entire cost of this magnificent memorial has been met from donations from business firms, local institutions, workpeople at mills and factories, and last, but by no means least, the offerings from relatives of the men whose names are on the roll of honour.
No tribute can be too great for those who, without flinching or hesitation, faced the horrors and deprivations of war and willingly gave for the country they loved so well. I am particularly impressed by the architectural beauty with which the memorial itself has been designed and carried out, but even more so by the idea of combining this with an educational centre for the present and future generations of Stockport citizens.
Every year, a remembrance service and procession would be held throughout Britain and the Commonwealth to commemorate the end of the war and provide an opportunity to remember those who had died. Originally called Armistice Day, this ceremony brought the whole of Stockport together, just as it would in every other town and village. As the memories of war receded, Stockport's businesses began to flourish again, bringing renewed prosperity to the town, and a real sense of both civic and community pride. The residents of Stockport showed that they could put on an impressive show for their traditional holiday celebrations. Joshua Preston, the mayor of Stockport from 1927 to 1929, was a prolific amateur filmmaker. These films, shot by his twin sons Sidney and Harold, are a remarkable record of the region and its people in the late 1920s. The 1930s was the age of cinema. The introduction of talkies had made cinema-going the leisure pastime, and by 1939, Stockport boasted some 40 cinemas.
October 1932, the Plaza Super Cinema offers the public a programme of entertainment never seen before in Stockport. Each performance includes 2 films preceded by a silent newsreel accompanied by the Plaza Orchestra and featuring the Compton organ played by our resident organist, Mr. Cecil Chadwick. Tickets from 6p to 2 shillings.
Not everyone was in favour of these new attractions.
Stockport Advertiser 1937. We believe this rash of cinemas to be a bad influence on the town's young men and women, and deplore the waning popularity of traditional and innocent social pursuits like visits to the local park.
But praise was unanimous for Stockport's local sporting hero. Fred Perry is still regarded as one of the greatest tennis players of all time, with a record-breaking career that amazed 1930 sports fans. Stockport Corporation honoured him in 1935 with this beautiful tea service. The 1930s also saw ambitious new plans for urban redevelopment. Slum housing was rapidly being demolished and new housing built in areas such as Adswood and Reddish. And once again, a reliable water supply was needed for the growing population.
Stockport Corporation Waterworks have acquired Goyt Valley for building a new reservoir. Before work can start, all the farmers and householders are moved out. Their properties are demolished in order to provide an uncontaminated water catchment area. A temporary railway is built to bring in all the building materials, and the machines set to work constructing the dam walls. All this activity certainly seems to impress the delegation of Stockport councillors coming to visit.
More people meant more town centre congestion, and a number of road building and public transport schemes were developed to ease the traffic obstructions. One of the most challenging was the construction of Mersey Way.
July 1936. Work begins on a project that is unique in the history of engineering, a monument to the enterprising courage of our local administrators. This endeavour will see the River Mersey straddled by a raised roadway, providing free and unfettered passage of traffic through our town. Mersey consists of 54 giant portal frames, which will straddle the river, and on these massive foundations will eventually rise a fine thoroughfare.
In 1938, it was clear that another war with Germany was now a real threat. Preparations began almost immediately. 100,000 gas masks were issued to residents, air raid precautions volunteers were recruited, and work began on a series of underground air raid shelters carved into the sandstone, which would make Stockport one of the safest towns in the region in the event of an air raid. War was declared on the 3rd of September 1939, but fortunately, after all the hurried preparations, the dreaded air raids did not come. During this phony war, Stockport would have 1 year's respite. The first bombs fell on Stockport in October 1940, with the worst bombing on the nights of the 22nd and 23rd of December 1940, when the railway goods depot and a number of houses were hit. But the industrial heart of Manchester would suffer far worse damage.
In the Manchester Blitz, the buses would come, and it would be like a football match crowd. There was 5,000-6,000 of them, and it was absolutely chock-a-block. And everyone could hear the crump-crump of the bombs falling on Manchester. Not loud-like, but you knew it, the vibrations. There was a definite stillness then. People got nervous. I hope it's safe in here, I hope it doesn't fall on us sort of feeling. When the all-clear siren sounded, we'd come out and look at the sky over Manchester. bright orange with the glow from all the fires.
During the early 1940s, thousands of men left the town to serve their country in the forces, and hundreds more volunteered their services in Stockport's civil defence organisations. Women played their part too, joining civil defence organisations, filling the jobs left by men who had gone to war and working in munitions factories. All the 2.5 million anti-tank sticky bombs requisitioned by the British Army were produced by the K Brothers Works in Reddish and were extensively used in France, Italy and North Africa.
Hello, Kathleen, darling. Mum, Dad, Bessie and Mr. and Mrs. Bartle. I received 2 letters today from you, dated the 19th of February, and also one from you, Mum. I am all right, as you can see, and my letters live up to what I am. I'm fit, well, and you and all at home are the same. Hello, Dad and all. Hope you're doing fine. After me, I feel quite okay.
Hello, Mother and Granny. How are you? I'll bet you're pleased to see me like this. I know I promised you a photograph when I was on leave, but still, this is better.
Back home, the war was having an unexpected side effect on the town's leisure activities.
In Stockport, I saw this poster, and with my camera went in search of an answer. Some people must work on Sundays, even in peace times. In wartime, their work is increased. Both pleasure seekers and munition workers need transport. In Mersey Square, I saw many passengers en route for Manchester. On arrival there, I saw this poster, Sunday at 2:30. Here, apparently, was the opportunity for Stockport people to relax. Who is responsible for the welfare of these people? Do they prefer this aimless perambulation in darkened streets to wholesome entertainment in the warmth and comfort of the cinema, or, in the summertime, the parks with the tennis and bowls? You have the right to ask, why should the public of Stockport be denied the facilities granted in hundreds of towns and cities in this country? But the opportunity is provided in the Stockport Express Family Ballad.
After nearly 6 years of danger and adversity, the war in Europe was finally over.
May the 8th, 1945. What a night! All the main thoroughfares are a seething mass of humanity as the people of Stockport celebrate victory in Europe. Everyone is cheering and in good humour. Peace has dawned on a war-torn world, and no less thankfully on our ancient town of Stockport.
In the same year, the Stockport Corporation published its plans for a new-look Stockport.
The plan submitted for your consideration is a pre-designed scheme for controlling the redevelopment of Stockport. It is an attempt to keep the best, improve the mediocre, and abolish the worst features. Our 2 main considerations are 1. Communications, and 2. 6 land use zones, Borough Surveyor, Town Hall, Stockport.
In the austerity period following the war, it was impossible to implement this vision. However, many elements of the 1945 plan can be seen in the town's layout today. In the early 1950s, food shortages and rationing were still in operation, and many of the country's towns and cities were only just beginning to be rebuilt. People's spirits needed a lift, and in 1951, the Stockport Express organised a trip for 350 of its readers to the Festival of Britain.
The Festival of Britain tells the story of British contributions to world civilization through 2 strands. A land endowed with scenery, climate and resources more various than any other country of comparable size, nurturing a people who could not be mistaken for any other nation in the world.
Town planning and new housing had been a major theme of the Festival of Britain, and Stockport commissioned a number of projects, one of the most important being the new housing estate at Brinnington.
It was really moving up in the world coming to Brinnington. You had electricity, you had bathrooms, indoors. I used to take the children to bed and leave the light on, just because I wanted to switch it on and light the room up. It was lovely, it really was. You had gardens, You know, I used to stand at the back door and think, this is our land. We never had that. We lived in a house that just had a backyard with a toilet in it. So it was good moving to Brinnington.
The town's public transport system was also being modernised. 1951 also marked the golden jubilee of the fixed-route tramways and their replacement by a more flexible fleet of buses. In 1953, almost the entire country sat transfixed in front of newly bought or hurriedly rented television sets for the Queen's coronation.
Television made the day a homely event, and we were not slow to tell each other, sitting crowded round our sets, that Stockport was having better weather than Westminster. Dozens of local street parties, pageants and school crownings made sure the children came off best, which is as it should be, in honour of the crowning of a young and devoted mother.
A new Elizabethan era has dawned, and to industrial Stockport, renowned the world over for high-quality products, it marks a period of progress. For centuries the town has been noted as a great cotton and hatting centre, but the modern age with its new inventions demands the newer industries of engineering and research, transport and communications. A young man starting any career need go no further than his own hometown to lay the foundations of a brilliant future.
However, the optimism of the new industries was offset by the decline of the traditional ones. Changes in world clothing markets and the new man-made fabrics forced 3 of the town's largest cotton spinning mills to close down in 1959. Hundreds of people lost their jobs, many of whom had worked in the mills all their lives. Exactly halfway through our story, marking 50 years of the new town hall, Stockport Council released a film to explain its workings.
Yes, it takes a lot of organisation to run a town like Stockport. It takes a lot of people, too. About 5,000, I reckon. You've seen them around, public servants, they call them. That means your servant and mine. You can't do all this without money. No, the bill for running Stockport for a year works out at something over £4 million. And who pays the bill? Well, in the long run, you do. Or we do. The ratepayers of Stockport. It's a lot of money. Of course it is. But look what you get for it. Take the matter of the single item education. Over £2 million. Here's a class of future chemists getting in on the ground floor. The joiners of tomorrow are learning how to build the houses of tomorrow. Everything here to turn the schoolgirls of today into the housewife of tomorrow. To run a home, or maybe earn a living. A pretty secretary she'll make somebody one day. I'm not boasting when I say our youngsters get as fine an education as you could find anywhere in Britain today. In the transport department, 170 buses to be greased every week. How would you like to empty 52,000 dustbins every week? Or clean out 23,000 gullies? And there are 156 miles of road to be swept each week. And you can add to that never-ending list the fire brigade. Last year they were called out to nearly 900 fires. Yes, that's the town hall. For half a century, a body of men and women freely elected have met to carry on those 101 jobs they call local government. As citizens of the borough, you're entitled to witness the proceedings and also the workings of the local government.
The swinging 60s was one of the most pivotal decades in living memory. The desire for the new, the bold, and most importantly the stylish kick-started revolutions in music, fashion, design and public opinion, rocking the whole of British society. Plans were unveiled for a new shopping centre at Mersey Way. This would be a swift departure from Stockport's many winding streets and was to be a bold statement of 60s design. Stockport's housing was given a 60s makeover too. With space at a premium, people were accommodated vertically rather than horizontally. Slum housing was demolished to make way for multi-storey flats like Mottram Towers, which dramatically changed the town's skyline. The towers were pure 60s design innovation. In the heady optimism of the 1960s, anything was possible.
Reddish may soon be another St. Moritz.
Two Norwegian students at Manchester University have imported 27 tons of Scottish snow to Reddish Vale to build a ski jump. Expert Norwegian skiers gave a world-class display of their national sport, bravely taken on by two British ski jumpers who did creditably well against such stiff competition. A crowd of enthusiastic onlookers each paid £50 to attend the event.
But the 60s also witnessed a disaster in Stockport.
June the 4th, 1967. This is the debris of what an hour earlier had been a proud DC-4 airliner winging its way to touchdown at Manchester Airport. Then came tragedy. It swerved, then seemed to drop, smashing into an electricity substation before bursting into flames. 72 passengers lie dead in the burnt-out wreckage. But there were heroes galore from Stockport, civilians as well as the police and firemen who fought against the searing heat and miraculously rescued 12 survivors.
In 1972, an Act of Parliament made dramatic changes to local government across the country, and Stockport was no exception. On the 1st of April 1974, Stockport Metropolitan Borough Council was officially established, proudly occupying its newly built 7-storey headquarters, Stockport House. For a few days in July 1978, a touch of Hollywood came to the newly formed borough when the town centre was used as a filming location for the movie Yanks, directed by John Schlesinger. And it was not just movies that were making the headlines, but music too. Strawberry Studios, established just off Hillgate in 1967, was one of only a few recording studios outside London, and home to the band 10cc, who enjoyed major success in Britain and America in the 70s. As the 1980s began, one of Stockport's most striking landmarks, the Portwood Cooling Tower, was coming down. But all around the borough, flowers were sprouting up.
Stockport is blooming marvellous, and that's official. The town is the outright winner in the All England Britain in Bloom competition. Judges from the English Tourist Board praised the high standards of the floral displays and the town's tremendous civic pride.
And a new landmark of a very different nature was rising too, in the shape of Stockport's very own pyramid. 5 pyramids were originally planned, and the site was to be given the name of King's Valley, but only one pyramid was actually built. In the 1980s, the country suffered a recession, which badly affected many businesses in Stockport. 2 of the oldest family businesses in the town closed, with the loss of hundreds of jobs. But Stockport's engineering expertise was still very much in demand, particularly in the aviation and defence industries. For many Stockportians, the 1990s will be remembered for one thing: the highs and lows of the beautiful game.
What an amazing run of success for Stockport County! After gaining promotion to the 3rd Division in 1991, they reached 2 Division playoff finals and 2 Autoglass Trophy finals during the following 3 seasons, taking their fans to Wembley no fewer than 4 times. In 1997, Stockport County wins automatic promotion to the 1st Division, reaching the semi-finals of the Coca-Cola Cup, and they have ended this latest amazing season in 8th position in Division 1, the highest ever finish for the club. The 1990s has certainly been a decade to remember for the Hatters.
Hatters of a very different kind were a feature of the decade too. In 1997, Stockport's last surviving hatting firm, Christie's, once described as one of the biggest hat manufacturing sites in Europe, finally closed its doors. The large industries that had been so much a feature of the early decades were now completely replaced by successful smaller companies and service providers. To mark the millennium, Stockport embarked on a number of important projects. Some of these look to the past and celebrated Stockport's rich history and heritage, helping to highlight what makes the town so unique. Hatworks, the country's only museum dedicated to hatting, opened its doors in the disused Wellington Mill, once the hatting factory of Ward Brothers, and now celebrating Stockport's role in the country's hatting industry. Also in 2000, the town launched a major blue plaque scheme, awarding heritage plaques to the favourite locations voted by residents. Staircase House was beautifully restored too, and opened to the public as a visitor attraction. Many Stockportians remember the house as the old Staircase Cafe, and have been thrilled to see the staircase restored to its former glory. The last 100 years have seen Stockport continually regenerate and reposition itself in the face of the social and economic changes in the wider world. The next 100 years will bring new challenges which we cannot foresee, but with its strategic location, diverse economy and a skilled workforce, Stockport is in a strong position to face its future. The continuing story of Stockport will be characterised by the ambition, entrepreneurial spirit and community pride which have shaped its past and its present.